My name is Nasser asterisk, and the incident I am about to tell you today happened in 2010. That was the year my life took a turn that still lives somewhere inside me to this day. I grew up in this house, that same simple old house whose walls breathed in the moisture. As a child, I played between these walls with my siblings, heard my mother's voice, and endured my father's angry scoldings. I was the youngest among my brothers, so everyone considered me a child, the one who spoke last in every matter, who held the least importance, but who was connected from within to every corner of the house. Time passed. My sisters got married and went to their own homes. Then my brothers also got married and started living separately. One by one, everyone left this house, and in the end, only I, my wife Samia and our children remained. Samia was a very soft-hearted and patient woman. She always took care of my parents. Even after they passed away, she kept the atmosphere of the house the same as they had left it. Our house was large, but a significant portion on one side remained empty. Since childhood, I had thought that there should be a room there, a proper, clean, separate room. I had once spoken to my father about it, but he had said there was no need at the time. After my father's passing, this desire resurfaced. In 2010, when both my parents had passed away, the house became even more silent than before. Now every sound, every noise, every breath of this house began to sink into my heart. During those days, I kept thinking about building a room in that empty space. Samia said that the children hadn't been married off yet. The house was big enough and there was no need. But there was a stubbornness in my heart. I explained to her that it would also be useful for guests, and the children could sleep separately. In the end, she agreed. I brought materials, cement, bricks, wood, and then called the laborers. Every morning they would come, and the house would fill with the slow sounds of their work. The sounds of hammers, the rustling of sand, the breaths of workers lifting bricks, all of it gave me a strange satisfaction, as if I was building something in my life after many years. It took a full 15 days. Then the room was ready. The walls were painted, lights were installed, new boards were fixed, and a good carpet was laid. The room carried a faint smell of earth, which remains in newly constructed rooms. In the beginning, we kept it empty. Only cleaning was done, and at night it was locked. A few days later, the children started insisting that they wanted to sleep there. Samia said, "Fine," and laid out beds there during the day. That night after dinner, the children happily went to the new room. I saw their faces. They considered the new room an adventure. The next morning, my eldest son said, "Father, why did you come near the room at night?" I was surprised. I hadn't gone there at all. He said that they heard the sound of footsteps from outside the window as if someone was walking. I explained to him that perhaps a dog had passed by outside or it was a misunderstanding, but a faint shadow settled in some corner of my heart. The next day, everything seemed normal. Night came, and we all ate dinner and went to our respective rooms. That day, too, the children were to sleep in the new room. I was also tired. That night was very deep. The wind was blowing strangely, as if someone's fingers were repeatedly rubbing along the edges of the walls. Around 1:30 a.m., my eyes opened. I don't know why, but it felt as if my heart had given me a push. In that silent night, I heard my children's screams, not loud screams, but muffled, panicked voices echoing in the courtyard. Samia and I immediately sat up. When we opened the door, both sons and my daughter came running and fell straight into our laps. Their bodies were trembling, their breaths uncontrollable. We held them and gave them water, repeatedly trying to ask what had happened, but they couldn't speak. Half an hour later, when they had calmed down a little, my eldest son said in a breathless voice that they had heard a strange voice near the window, as if someone was whispering very softly. Then something also happened near the door. They saw nothing, but there were sounds as if someone was deliberately whispering to frighten them. They had run away in fear. I told the children that perhaps it was just an illusion, but the fear on their faces didn't seem to be from any illusion. That same night, I got up again and went near the room. I myself felt a sense of fear in my heart. I slowly opened the door. The bulb was on inside. The room had that same new earthy smell and silence. I stood there for about 10 minutes, no sound, no movement. I went near the outside window, there was nothing there either. I returned, but a faint coldness had settled in my heart, as if someone had reached inside and moved something. The next morning, when everyone came for breakfast, I noticed that my daughter had not come. At first, I thought she might still be sleeping. I called out, no answer. I went to the room. She was sitting on the bed. Her face was completely blank. Her eyes were fixed on some strange place. I asked, what happened? But she gave no answer. There was a strange glow in her eyes, not anger, but it seemed as if she was looking at some other world, as if something was trapped inside her. I picked her up and brought her outside. She neither recognized anyone nor responded. We took her to a doctor. The doctor said, it seems like a mental issue. Take her to a religious scholar. Hearing this, a cold, sliding feeling descended into my heart. I asked relatives. Many gave advice. Finally, someone told me that in a nearby city there was an elderly religious scholar who was an expert in such matters. The next day, I took my daughter in a taxi to him. There was already a rush of people there. Finally, my turn came. I told him everything. He placed his hand on my daughter's head and kept reciting. Then he gave her a talisman and also gave blessed water. He only said one thing, never let children go near this room again. There was a heavy weight in his words. I could feel it in my heart. I returned and gave her the blessed water. Several days passed and my daughter slowly began to recover. When she recognized me for the first time, tears came to my eyes. Months passed. Everything returned to normal. But a question remained in my heart. That new room I had built out of desire, what was in it? The peace that had eluded me for so long after that night had now become a permanent nest. Despite my daughter's recovery, that room remained stuck in my mind like an unnatural stain. And every night when the house fell silent, my eyes would involuntarily be drawn toward that room. I thought many times that perhaps it was all just an accident. The children's imagination, frightening dreams in sleep. But when I sat on the bed in that room at night and felt the faint smell of earth, even that doubt would disappear. Ordinary things now seemed to carry different meanings. A small nail on the floor began to seem like a sign on a mysterious surface. A leaf turned over under the window began to feel like a whisper, and the softness of the carpet no longer felt like a bed, but like an obstruction. I would often get up at night and walk around that room. I would run my hand along the wall, searching for some sign of coldness or dampness that could tell me whether something truly unusual was there, or whether I was deceiving myself. One night I decided that I would sleep in that room myself, to see if this fear was reality or merely mental pressure. Samia forbade it. The children looked at me with fear in their eyes, but I insisted that it was better to face it openly than to hide the flaw. That night I slowly opened the window. Outside, the moon was incomplete in the winds. I took a deep breath and told myself to close my eyes and try to sleep. But instead of sleep, something else happened. My ears were touched by a soft but sharp whisper. Someone faintly murmured my name, and I felt as if someone was standing very close. My heart started pounding loudly. Sweat came. And then the sound of footsteps that the children had heard before was now clear and close in my ears. This sound was not ordinary, as if someone had stepped on soft skin, or as if someone was walking inside the wall. I slowly turned and looked toward the window. The scene outside was the same as every day: a small lane, a bush, and the silence of a distant tank. But seeing a shadow behind the window glass, my legs began to tremble. I reached out and gently opened the window. Slowly, wind came in, and with it came a fragrance I had never felt before. I turned around, and at that moment the scene stood before me. A tall figure wrapped in white robes, feet reversed, floating in the air right in front of the window frame. His height was unnaturally tall, beyond any human proportion. His face was a masked map, eyes like deep skulls, empty, lips thin, but behind them it seemed as if someone had stolen a shape with a laugh. I held my breath, and suddenly that floating presence turned and entered. When I looked back, I found him right in front of me, so close that I could feel the moisture of his body. But his robes were not black. They were so white that from a distance they appeared like light, but up close, it seemed as if light itself was getting lost in them. This was a scene that made even the mind tremble. I immediately ran back. I ran inside the house toward my room. The more I ran, the more a dry heat began to touch me. In a hurry, I washed my face and tried to drink water, but my lips tasted like iron. My ears started buzzing. A fatigue came over my body as if someone had dumped a lifetime of labor overnight. The next morning, a high fever came over me. My temperature rose and I couldn't even walk properly. Samia wiped my sweat with a cloth. The children looked at me with fear in their eyes, and I told myself that perhaps this fever was physical. But another fear was inside me, that human-like shape would not leave my mind. Within a few days, the fever subsided somewhat. But for some reason, my tolerance had increased. Even ordinary sounds of noise became disturbing, and in the depths of the night when the house was completely cold and silent, a faint rustling would come from somewhere, a rustling that doesn't speak but conveys a meaning, an unwelcome invitation. I thought again of that same elderly religious scholar who had given the talisman to my daughter after her possession. Samia forbade me many times, but when I saw my own weakness, I realized that this matter was not one that could be solved by one person's attention alone. I went to the scholar. In his words, for the first time, there was tiredness and a slight pause. He said he would come, but he asked me to tell him the condition of the house. I told him the whole truth. He said something in silence and finally promised that he would come soon. I waited, but with every passing night, my sleep grew weaker. Meanwhile, some people from the neighborhood also started coming to us, those who knew the old stories of this village. An elderly man told me in a low voice that there used to be another house on this spot which had been vacated some time ago. According to some stories, there was a piece of land there that had been extended and divided, and it was said that jinn or some kind of creatures used to pass through there. I had previously laughed off such talk, but now, standing there myself and feeling that there were buried secrets in the ground, my smile grew cold. Many days passed and the scholar's arrival was delayed. One night when my restlessness reached its peak, I opened the room myself and sat on its edge, reciting some verses from the Quran. I raised the name of Allah loudly, but as soon as I started reciting in a loud voice, that same whisper came from near the window again. But this time, that voice called my name and turned into an open roar. I closed my eyes, raised my hands, and recited loudly. The moment fear entered my voice, that presence appeared before me. He turned and looked at me, and for the first time I saw that inside his mouth, voices were entangled like threads, as if thousands of voices were bursting together. I tried to run, but my feet were stuck to the ground. I let out a loud scream, and with that, the whole house woke up. Samia, the children, everyone came out with fear in their eyes. I jumped onto the bed and pressed my arms hard, afraid that the presence might come inside again. Samia held my face with her hands and said she would call a doctor, but I said this was not a matter for a doctor, it was spiritual. I needed the scholar. The next morning, I took a taxi to the nearby city to meet the religious scholar, but inside me, there was also a strange hesitation. I knew that the one who had placed his hand on my daughter's head before might now be able to stand with us like a pillar. But another aspect troubled me. Would the scholar's words truly be enough? Was the connection of this presence merely to this land, or had someone deliberately summoned it here? As soon as I reached the scholar's place, his face was serious. He listened to the details of our house's condition and my fever. Then, looking at me in silence, he said that he would come. But first, we would have to clean certain places in the house and arrange salt, black cumin, and water. A few days after his promise, he himself arrived at our house. When he stepped inside the door and entered the room, I saw that he had a small drum-like talisman in his hand, and his voice carried the same composure we had experienced before. As he entered the room, his movements showed both observation and respect. He looked at the room from all sides. He bent near the window, touched the marks on the ground with his hands, and then released words into the air with blessed breaths. Hearing his recitation, I felt as if the room itself was breathing in a certain way. The entire atmosphere began to change, and for the first time I saw that perhaps all of this was not destruction. It could be removed with understanding. He told me that where I had built the room, a path had been created, a kind of closed passage that passes underground and is used for the coming and going of jinn. He said that when a person builds on such a place without thought, the structure of that path is disturbed, as if a wall is suddenly erected on a road and those who use it become angry. He explained that when those creatures become angry, they leave certain signs. The first sign is the sound of footsteps. The second is emptiness in the eyes. The third is fever at night and unnatural cold or heat. And the fourth is disturbance in the sleep of children. Hearing his words, my heart became heavy, but at the same time I also felt relief because now there was a name and a method that I knew. The scholar began his recitation. From every corner of the house, specific prayers were offered. Before sunrise and after sunset, specific rituals were performed. Special talismans were given, and it was said that the path had to be closed. He instructed us to create specific signs outside the room. Salt and black cumin were to be sprinkled on the ground, and if possible, a special kind of salty water was to be used. And the most important thing was that no one should ever stay alone in that room at night, and children should never be allowed to go there alone. I listened to his words and felt that now I had hope. But inside, there was a faint fear. When we closed the path, had we closed a door forever, or had we angered someone by blocking their route? The scholar said in the end that what had happened would come to an end, but I would have to recite prayers daily for some days and keep specific signs for the protection of the house. I accepted his words. We began to act on the methods he had told us. That night, for the first time, I closed my eyes with complete hope, but the same shadows were still flickering somewhere in my heart. I knew that this battle was not over yet, but the scholar's presence had given me the courage that I had not felt for a long time. After a few days, peace returned to the house. The children's sleep returned to normal. My daughter's eyes regained their natural state, and Samia also became peaceful. I still sometimes look toward that room and wonder whether what happened was truly seen by our eyes, or whether it was the reality of some other world. But by the grace of Allah and the guidance of the scholar, we all remained protected. Now, sitting on the edge of the room, I only feel silence, and a strange satisfaction in my heart that we took the right steps, and the fear that was there has ended. After the scholar's visit, life slowly returned to its normal rhythm. The children stopped talking about the room. My daughter's health improved completely. Samia stopped glancing nervously toward that corner of the house, but I could not fully shake off the memory. Every time I passed by that room, my eyes would linger on the door for a moment longer than necessary. The scholar had told me to keep reciting certain verses daily, and I followed his instructions without fail. Every morning after the dawn prayer, I would stand outside the room and recite. Every evening before sunset, I would do the same. The salt and black cumin were replaced weekly, and the blessed water was sprinkled in all four corners of the room. For the first few weeks, nothing unusual happened. The silence was deep, but it was the silence of an empty room, not the silence of a presence waiting. I began to relax. I started believing that the chapter was closed. But one night about a month later, I woke up suddenly at 2 a.m. There was no sound, no movement, but I knew something was different. I lay still, listening. The house was silent. Samia was sleeping peacefully beside me. The children were in their rooms. Everything was normal. Yet I could not shake the feeling that I was being watched. I got up quietly, not wanting to wake Samia. I walked to the door of the room. The door was closed as I had left it. I placed my hand on the handle. It was cold, much colder than the rest of the house. I opened the door slowly. The room was empty. The moonlight was coming through the window, casting pale shadows on the carpet. Everything was in its place. I stepped inside. The air was still, but it carried a faint chill. I walked to the window and looked outside. The lane was empty. The bush was still. The distant tank stood silent. Nothing moved. I was about to turn back when I heard it, a very soft whisper, so faint that I could not tell if it was real or imagined. It came from behind me. I spun around. The room was empty. But the carpet near the wall had a slight depression, as if someone had been standing there and had just stepped away. I left the room quickly and closed the door. I did not sleep for the rest of the night. In the morning, I told the scholar what had happened. He listened without interrupting. Then he said, sometimes when a path is closed, those who used to try to find another way, they test the closure, they look for cracks. You did the right thing by not engaging. Continue your recitations. Do not show fear. The signs you have placed are strong. Trust them. I followed his advice. I continued my daily recitations. I made sure the salt and black cumin were always fresh. I sprinkled blessed water weekly. The depression in the carpet did not return. The whispers did not come back. Weeks turned into months. The fear slowly faded. The room became just a room again. The children started using it during the day for studying. They no longer mentioned the strange sounds or the shadow. Life moved on. But I never forgot. I never stopped being cautious. Every night before sleeping, I would check the room. I would look at the window, at the carpet, at the walls. I would stand at the door and listen, and then I would close it and go to sleep. I still do that even today. It has become a habit, a small ritual of protection. I often think about the nature of what we encountered. Was it a jinn, a ghost, something else entirely? I do not know. The scholar said it was a path, a route used by beings we cannot see. When I built the room, I unknowingly blocked their way. They were angry and they made their presence felt. But when I closed the path properly with the right prayers and signs, they stopped. I have learned a valuable lesson from this experience. We live in a world that is much larger than what we can see. There are things around us that we do not perceive, and sometimes our actions, even the simplest ones, can disturb the order of things. I now understand why my father did not want to build that room. Perhaps he knew something. Perhaps he had heard the old stories. Or perhaps he simply had a feeling, an instinct that some places are better left untouched. I wish I had listened to him. I wish I had not been so stubborn. But regret does not change the past. What matters is what we do with the lessons we learn. Today, I share this story with you so that you might be warned. If you ever feel a strange presence in a new room or hear footsteps when no one is there, do not ignore it. Do not dismiss it as imagination. There may be a reason. There may be a path that you have unknowingly crossed. And if you ever feel that you are being watched, remember to recite your prayers. Remember to ask for protection. And remember that some doors, once opened, take time to close again. But they can be closed. I am proof of that. The room is still there. It is no longer a source of fear. It is just a room with 4 walls, a window, and a carpet. But I never sleep in it. I never stay there after dark. And I always say a small prayer before I close its door. That is my story. I hope it serves as a reminder that the unseen world is real, and that our actions have consequences beyond what we can see. May Allah protect us all from such paths, such presences, and such fears. May He keep our homes safe and our hearts strong. If you like this story, please like the video and leave a kind comment. Subscribe to the channel for more true stories of the unseen. We will meet again, God willing, with another story.